can get started. Good afternoon. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you got a good day started on getting the planning going, up and ready. As you know, we've been going through the 8 steps to your efficiency, not just being in the field doing work, but being efficient in doing the work, being effective when you're out there. And there are certain steps that we follow to get you there. We've been over the 10 blocks and 4-week forecast, extracting leads, pack calls, building routes, and now we are going to be talking about step number 5, which is research. And I know most of y'all know the importance of research. This isn't Dara's first time speaking on it, because Dara's team in the Valdosta office was one of the front runners on adopting this and seeing the results that followed, even picking up on some things that wasn't being taught from the home office about when to actually use the research. We were using the research on the tail end instead of on the front end. And so she's going to talk today about, how to gather your information, what you're looking for, how to use it. So I'm going to shut my trap, hit mute on my computer, let her take over and just pour this into you. And as you know, these are recorded, so take notes as best as you can. But if you need to follow up, we'll have this posted on YouTube, our YouTube channel tonight or no later than tomorrow. So Dara, if you don't mind, just start telling everybody about your career journey, how you got started, how you got to where you are, what your team dynamic looks like, and then you can dive into the training.
Okay. So, hey guys. Hey. So, those of y'all that don't know me, I'm agency director over here in Valdosta. So somehow we've been named the research king and queen over here. And it all started being in the field with Bruce one day. And many of you have heard this story, but I had 2 supervising agents in the car, and we are headed to our first stop, and Bruce says, what's your research? And so we were looking cross-eyed and crazy. We didn't have any research. So he starts explaining the value in research and how we can use that. So we do some quick Google searches. I'm feeling silly. Sometimes it feels silly. But I have to lead from the front. I've got these 2 in the car with me. So we walk into a business and we role played in the car. Couldn't find a whole lot on the lady, but we found a little bit. Went in, we role played it exactly how we did it, or did it exactly how we role played in the car. And lo and behold, that led to a presentation and 2 closes. She actually had another business as well. So we ended up getting 2 sets of paperwork out of that. And it all started with research. So, Brian, how do I share? Can I just share?
Yep, down at the bottom of your screen, it should have a share to. There you go. Dara Boatwright is sharing her screen. Research, why is it important?
All right. All right. So just some best practices. It doesn't start with research, right? There's a lot of information behind the scenes that happens before that. So it all starts with proper planning, of course. So utilizing your 10 blocks of time, of course, that prioritizes your week. Making sure you got your leads pulled prior to call clinic. Utilizing your layers, of course, that cuts down on the amount of pack calls that you have to make. Make sure you're qualifying those leads through a pack call and not Google search. So that does give you the most accurate information. And notating gatekeeper's name in there as well. That helps of course when you're starting to use and implement the research. Maximizing your time in the field, make sure your routes are optimized, distance or schedule. And then finally, what we're all here to talk about is including research on those routes. And so that builds a rapport and helps engage in conversation with your decision maker. So rapport, what is rapport? Well, the definition of rapport is a close and harmonious relationship in which the people or groups concerned understand each other's feelings or ideas and communicate well. So this helps promote open communication. and helps establish trust with your decision maker and reduce distractions. It keeps your decision maker engaged. A lot of times you can kind of feel the vibe, right, when you're in there and they're busy, they're kind of shutting down, they're picking up their phone, they're looking at their phone. But if you're engaging in conversation that is something that is exciting for them to talk about, then it helps keep them engaged, and it helps you be persuasive as well, right? So you can tailor that conversation in the direction that you want to, and it gives you confidence, right? So if you don't really know, this is a stranger, so if you actually have a foundation to build on, then it gives you confidence and it helps you know that business before you walk in there. So there is no script for research or rapport. Cody Poe talks about this, and it makes a lot of sense. Everyone's was going to look different. So an example of that would be, so if you don't watch football, you don't follow football, right? So if you do a lot of research on your decision maker and you see that they're big football fans, well, that's really not going to be the information that you choose. So everybody's research is going to look a little different. Sorry, forgot I was sharing my screen here. So what is rapport made of? So 55% of that is body language, posture, eye contact, your facial expressions, your energy level. So making sure that you're smiling, when you walk in, you're inviting, you're warm, you're smiling. Don't go in with your hands in your pockets, or your arms crossed, like you're shut out. So go in with, a smile, big smile on your face. Again, it's confident, having your head up high, good posture. 38% is voice and tone. So this helps project confidence as well. Your volume, your pitch, make sure that, you're not screaming at them, but you also don't want to be whispering. So just good voice inflection. And only 7% of that is words. Again, I forgot I'm sharing this screen over here. So 7% is words. So it's really not always what you're saying, it's how you're saying it and how you're delivering that to the DM. So 4 principles of rapport: empathy, authenticity, shared experience, and similarity. So empathy is the ability to understand and feel what another person is experiencing from their perspective. It's showing them that you genuinely care. You're listening without judgment. So how do you use this? You be an active listener. Don't interrupt. When you ask them that back pocket question and they start to talk, don't interrupt. Nod, acknowledge what they're saying, and also reflects emotions. And you do that by saying, like, wow, that sounds exciting, or, oh, I can understand how you must feel frustrated by that. Whatever the circumstance is, but reflecting emotions by saying key phrases. Authenticity. It means you're being genuine and transparent, showing the real you rather than this professional mask. You want to connect with people sincerely. So how do you do that? Be honest about what you know and what you don't know. So if you're not a big football fan and you don't know a lot of football, don't go in there trying to act like you know a lot of football. Just be honest with the fact that, I see you're a huge Georgia fan. It's not something I really follow. Let them engage in conversation. They're going to be excited to start talking about that to you and sharing their knowledge. You don't have any knowledge of that. So be honest about what you know, and let your personality show in conversations, right? So, of course, just being your genuine self. People don't want a stuffed shirt insurance salesman in there. They want somebody that's relatable and someone that, is real, just real and genuine. Shared experience. So rapport deepens when you and another person can relate through common experiences. It builds a sense of we're in this together. So how do you show that? Find connection points in conversation. Something that you can always bring the conversation back, relate it back to you as well. So like shared challenges, hobbies, or goals. Refer to shared events or experiences, and that'll help strengthen that relationship through that conversation. So similarities. The definition of that is people naturally connect with others who share similar interests, values, or communication styles. Highlighting what you have in common creates comfort and trust. So how do you show that? So you mirror their tone and their pace in the conversation. Mention shared interests like sports, family, or community involvement. And that helps to emphasize that common ground between the two of you. So you're starting to build that relationship. So we got rapport. We know what that's about. Tips for finding the research. So where do you go to find it? So we know while we're doing research, that's to build rapport. So now we have to find that research so we can start generating our back pocket questions. So just some examples of some places that you can go on the internet. I know I'm not familiar with the sun business much down in Florida, but I know you can find a lot of good information. But our big go-to is Chat GPT here. In the beginning, I was kind of skeptical about that because we had found some information that wasn't accurate. But the more that we've used it, you can simply ask Chat GPT to give you, some talking points with the owner of, ABC Plumbing in Valdosta, Georgia. So that's some really good places that you can find some research. Social media. You want to do some research, not just only on your business, but on your decision maker as well. So looking at their Facebook page, looking at their Instagram, their social medias. And then also you can generate back pocket questions from like their company's Google reviews. So people will hop on there and say, something specifically about that owner, that decision maker. And so you can use that through your report building. And then local news outlets, so you'll find another thing is scroll down past your first populated results. So not the ones that populate at the top, scroll on down past that a couple of pages down, and then you may found some local news outlets where they were chosen as the such and such, for the county. So we were in Valdosta, yay, just chosen as the Valdosta Chamber leading business of the week last week. So, that's not going to be one of your top populated results when you're trying to look for research, so scroll down and you would see those local news outlets. And if you find that they have an award, again, knowing what you're talking about when you're going in there, just do a quick little search is what is that award for? If it says that it's I don't know, the Challengers Award. Well, what is that? So what is that award for? And who did they give it to? How did they choose that winner? So you have some basic knowledge of like, congratulations, to congratulate them on the award that was chosen. And the biggest thing, we do a lot more so of this research in the DM than the business. Now we do business research as well, but really establishing relationships with the DM is going to be something that they're interested in, right? So they know that they've got 50 years in the plumbing industry, so that may not be, they plumb every day, all day and talk about it. So talking about, actually something that's near and dear to their heart, like their hobbies, their family, and, their community service. So now we found that research. And so you want to come up with your back pocket question. So you want to make sure that, if you already have your back pocket question, you want to put that into your research as well on your lead. So when you're in the field, you already have it right there. So your open-ended question it starts a conversation. It opens opportunities for that DM to engage with you. So the time that we were in the car with Bruce, when all this journey started, again, we didn't have a whole lot of research. We just knew that the lady had 15 years of mental health experience. And so when we went in, it was simply, wow, you have a very impressive resume. You have 15 years in the mental health experience, in the mental health industry. What led you here? And completely by surprise. I'd never dreamt that it was going to go like this, but her face just lit up with the biggest smile. And she said, well, it all started with an abnormal psych class. And now we have led into like a 15-minute conversation on how she got here and where she started. So back pocket questions, get them excited to start having conversations. They can't be answered with a yes or a no. So, it requires them to respond to you with more than just a yes or a no. And these questions will generally begin with who, what, when, where, or how. So rapport using research becomes before the 30-second commercial. Okay. Also, Like, is now a good time? On their way to their office, during your benefits fact sheet, throughout your presentation, you continue to use the rapport from the research that you've generated. Again, just establishing those relationships. Research also does not end after the first walk-in. It's continuous. And how you're going to be able to build on that is making sure that you're putting in like clear, precise notes. Make sure you're logging very specific information. So a lot of times you'll go in and, your decision maker isn't there, but you start creating relationships with your gatekeeper. And then that's going to, he or she is going to start getting more familiar with you. Maybe you've been in this business several times. So, they'll start opening up and giving you more information that you can use, and making sure you're logging that in your notes when you leave from there so you don't forget all of those details. So ask the questions, ask the gatekeeper, some questions. If surroundings in the office, you may have done some research on your decision maker, but you didn't know that they were a huge, I don't know, Dallas Cowboys fan or something, but you see, in their office that's right behind there, and you can see clearly in the office, you see that there's all this memorabilia in there. So, put that in your notes. You can use that next time. May not be something that you found on the internet. Or also, in their office, in the lobby, they'll have awards. Talk to your gatekeeper about that. Let her give you information, or he or she give you information on that. And sometimes, a lot of times, they'll have these little, like magazines, like local magazines, maybe from the Chamber of Commerce or something, laying in their waiting room as well. So use that information to put into your notes. So establishing relationships with the gatekeeper helps them give you more information that you can use for later drop-bys. So find common interest and build on that when you're talking to your decision maker and to your gatekeeper, right? So find common interest, build on that, ask follow-up questions. Again, we want to make sure that we're actively listening. Be aware of their body language, so you want to respect their time. So if it's clear that these people are extremely busy at the moment, it's not a good time to come up with what got you started in this industry. No, read their body language. You want to save that for the next drop by. And always lead the conversation with respect and empathy. So we know why we're doing this, we know where to find it, and we know how to use it. So I had a call with someone the other day that was wanting to ask, like, I have the research, but I just don't know how to put it in action. So I've kind of found that there is two most common, or two statements that you can use in most any that to lead into your back pocket question. So if you're going to be using research more so on your actual business, then, hey, Brian, I did a little bit of homework before coming in. You guys are really a staple in the community. I see that you guys are the largest, whatever, hauler of concrete in the area. How did you guys, get chosen to do that? Whatever, insert your back pocket question, but did a little homework, and you guys are a staple in the community. And that'll pretty much open any window for any back pocket question you want to insert there. Now, if you're doing more research or you're using more research when you go in on your actual decision maker, hey, Brian, I did a little research before coming in. I noticed you have a very impressive resume, just like we did with the lady with the mental health, so I noticed you have a very impressive resume. Wow, 15 years of mental health experience. What led you to choose this field? And that pretty much will let you insert any back pocket question by using these two statements. And then also always role play using your back pocket question before every walk-in. So when you're navigating to that next stop, even if you're in the car by yourself, role play out loud by yourself, so that you're familiar with, what my back pocket question is, so what I expect to say when I walk in here. So make sure you're always role playing before every walk-in. So we're going to throw up here is some research from one of my agent's leads. So read over that, and then I'm going to let anybody unmute that would like to give me. So, what's some examples of some back pocket questions from this research? Anybody? Come on, Valdosta. Somebody out there has
I don't
got a
know how
back
easy
pocket
it's going to
question.
be for them to unmute and ask the questions. You want to just give us some of the back pocket questions that you have in here?
So reading this, he enjoys playing golf. So what's your favorite local golf course that you like to visit often? Do you have a favorite golf course? It says that he attends a few UGA games during the football season. So another one would be, do you have a specific game that you make sure, that you go to every year? So those are back pocket questions that, examples of that, just looking at that research. And then another example here. So Keith is active in multiple professional, civic, and faith-based organizations, including Leadership League, Morningside United Methodist Church, and The Point. So a back pocket question could be, wow, I see you are a staple in the community, involved in, many organizations in the community. What's the closest one to your heart, and why did you choose that one? Why are you involved in that one? Is, just to let them open up. It's going to clearly, it's important to them. And so they're going to want to engage in conversation and tell you about it. And then finally, here is another one. So Dawn and Tony developed a pit and trench burner to reduce landfill wood waste, and they still use that same design from 1985. Now, I have no idea what a pit or trench burner is, so I'm not going to pretend to know that. However, I am going to say, wow, how did you guys come up with, the secret back in 1985? Did you, Cody actually give me this back pocket question, and he said, did you guys just get lucky, and find the one right off the gate, or, how does this process work, for you guys to continue to use it today? So just a couple of back examples of some back pocket questions. So that's all I got today, Brian.
All right. Well, hey, that's good stuff. I took several notes and maybe even getting you to do a little clarification, but just to make sure that everybody picked up on this, if you want to go ahead and stop sharing your screen there, it'll put it a little bit so I can see a little bit. There you go. See a little bit gooder. I just first question was the don't yell at them directed at me. Because I heard that last week's Zoom, whenever I was going through a week, that it seemed like there was a lot of yelling going on, and I was being made fun of behind my back and all the officers. Was that directed at me? I just want to know if that was directed at me.
No, it was not
Okay.
directed towards.
I was just making sure first. The two back pocket questions or the one back pocket question. So my question about that is I was looking at how y'all had the research. I'm assuming you extracted that from like Epic or from the lead. When you find the back pocket questions, do you go ahead and like write them out in the research right there so you're not having to go find it again? Or is there a way to highlight certain things? So if I've done the research and I'm looking for the back pocket question, do I go ahead and plug that into the research? Or when I'm role playing before every walk in, am I looking for it every time right before the walk in and using it to role play in the car?
Both.
Oh, okay.
So I have some agents that will already come up with their back pocket question, and they will actually put in their research, back pocket question. So, it populates right there at the top. And then some, when we're headed to the research, headed to the stop, we use that as our time to come up with examples of our back pocket questions.
Yeah. And some other things that I wrote when you were talking about authenticity. I think it's good when you talk about being honest. I think honest communication is important, which sometimes makes us vulnerable. And what's crazy about this is most good leaders, when you're vulnerable, they don't abuse that. So if you go in like, look, man, football's not my thing. I know who the Bulldogs are. I noticed that you go to a few games every year. Is there like a game that is like your staple that you're going to make sure I'm going to the Georgia Florida game every year? Or now that they're playing Alabama, I don't care if they're in Alabama or if they're in Athens, I'm going to that game. Is there one game that you're going to make sure that you go to every year? And being vulnerable by saying you don't know a lot about it, I think also helps like them stand a foot taller. You know what I'm saying? Because now uh,
Yeah,
they're the expert in the room.
that's right. Yeah. And it's going to be a greater opportunity for them to engage, especially if it's something that they're passionate about, then you don't know anything about it, they're going to want to share with you.
Right on. Chat GPT, one of the things you said is you weren't as familiar with it in the beginning, but now it's like a go-to. It's a staple. It's a really good starting place. Maybe even a good finishing place. If there's some things in there that you question, you can always do additional research online to follow it. I love the fact that you don't research the business only, but the actual decision maker. By making it personal, you're going to stand a greater chance of building the rapport rather than just talking about the business, because not always does the DM the person that started the business. So you could talk about it being in business for 50 years, and this might be something that his family bought 10 years ago and put him manager over. So the 50 years he doesn't take as much pride in as what they've accomplished in the last 10 years. So
Right.
doing that research about the DM, and the business, but not only the business, but using Chat GPT. So a while back, Bree and I were just kind of playing around with Chat GPT and started asking questions. And what's crazy about it is, guys, as you begin to use it and become more familiar with it, it really is a pretty amazing tool. You can start with something as simple as, like Dara said, tell me about XYZ Plumbing in Valdosta, Georgia, and how can I strike up a conversation with the guy that's over benefits? You can make it as simple as you want. It'll pop up some ideas. It'll even prompt additional questions for you, or you'll think about another question like, well, I don't really like that. Is there anything else that I could talk about that maybe is from some awards that they have won? And I'm telling you, man, it'll just start digging deeper and deeper and deeper into the data. And you can just keep adding questions on top of questions on top of questions until you found your back pocket question or the information that you want to use for being able to use Rapport. So, Darryl, would you say today's um, would you say you are stronger at using Chat GPT today than you were 3 months ago when you did it the very first time?
Yes, 100%. And like you said, it continues to prompt you so you can tailor it, to fit you. It doesn't sound like it's a robot or a computer generated, back pocket question, like it will tailor it specifically to you. You just keep telling it what to do. And I feel like sometimes it starts to talk like me too, like
Starts giving you some country comments,
yeah.
American comments.
So you can tailor it to you. You can tell it to dumb that down a bit, you can say, give me 3 talking points with the owner of the Cannington agency, Brian Cannington, out of Waycross, Georgia. And it's going to pop up some stuff and it may sound extra professional and that's just not you. Then you can literally say, make that dumb that down a little bit, and it'll dumb it down for you, so
Put it
that
on my level, huh?
yeah, so you're all, you're being authentic, I'm not going in there and trying to act like I'm a neurosurgeon, I'm real, people want to do business with
Yeah.
people that are relatable.
Yeah. Back to authenticity,
They're
right?
real human.
Yep. Last thing from me, Bruce, I'll open it up for you. We're right here at the end, but I love the fact that you pointed out rapport starts when they walk out. Like when you ask for the DM, and guys, you only have one time that's your first time meeting them. Every time after the first time is a follow up, right? And we have a really good training on the 5-step follow up process. All of this is about the first time, but I love the fact, Darren, that you said the relationship building or the rapport is established throughout the relationship. Like if they first walk out and I'm building a little bit of rapport, even when I go back there and I'm in the benefit fact sheet, I'm building some more rapport. When I'm going through my presentation, I'm building some more rapport. On my way out with signed paperwork, I'm building more rapport. When I come back and do the enrollment, I'm building more rapport. Every chance I get, I'm strengthening my relationship. It's not a one-time event. it is a lifetime process with them from the very first moment they walk out. Hey, I'm Brian. I did a little research before I was walking in here. I noticed that you're a staple of the community. What, who, when, where, how, to open them up to communication to then start the rapport building process that continues through every step of the process from now until the day I retire. Thank you for adding that. Bruce, I'm going to let you kind of wrap up. I know that she gave you kudos at the very beginning. This started the day that y'all were in the car, and she was like a deer in headlights at night whenever you asked about the rapport, and just making sure that before you walked in, you sat outside, researched the business in the parking lot, role played it uncomfortably, you said, Dara, and walked in. And I mean, as God would have it, it worked the very first time, but has worked several times since then, right? Dara has worked several times since then, which is why they put so much emphasis on it. So, Bruce, why don't you give like your final thoughts on research and using it for rapport building?
Derek, great job today on this training. I think you hit it right on the head with just making sure that you're going in prepared. What we're talking about here is emotional intelligence. 80% of what we do is psychology. I said this on the previous training. These business owners have a high level of emotional intelligence. And so any way that you can stand out from the others that are walking in and not being in, like having that reinforced emotional connection with these business owners, they're going to read right through it. They're going to know exactly who's real and who's not. So just taking that preparation to build genuine curiosity about a business owner and their families and their history, I'll tell you, it is one of the most incredible things you can do to just build that influence in any community. So again, they're a great job. I'm looking forward to seeing what this could do for you all. Just make sure whatever questions you have, let us know, and we'll be sure to provide you with any continued training. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Bruce. So with that, guys, we're going to wrap this one up. And don't forget, Thursday morning, 7:30, 6:30 Central, we will be bringing the heat again with the 6th step. And next week, we'll wrap it up the last 2 days. So finish strong today. Love and appreciate y'all, and catch y'all later in the week.